What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I love talking about movies, and as 2023 draws to a close, it's time to talk about our top 10 most surprising movies of 2023. Now, these are movies that I walked into the theater with very low expectations, very little anticipation, but I walked out pleasantly surprised. These won't necessarily be on my top 10 best movies of the year list, but some of them might be, so check back next week to see what my top 10 best movies of 2023 were. But like all other videos, it's not just about me. I would love to know what your top 10 most surprising movies of 2023 are. So let me know in the comment section down below what movies surprised you this year. Doesn't have to be 10, but try to limit it to 10 to see if you can whittle it down to what surprised you the most. It makes it more fun, in my opinion. But with that said, guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe, especially if you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk. I've got a ton of Blu-rays behind me where I just talk about my different Blu-rays on my channel. It's a good time. And if you like ranked lists for movies, because I've been putting out a ton of those this year, and I will continue on doing that in 2024. With all that said, let's talk about the top 10 most surprising movies of 2023. And so, guys, coming in at number 10 is an Amazon Prime released movie called Totally Killer. And I had no expectations for this movie. I saw the poster for this movie, the guy with the weird mask, and the poster will be up when you're watching the video, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I saw that poster, and I was immediately like, no, I want nothing to do with this. But I was sitting alone in a hotel room, had nothing to do, and I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I turned it on, and I got to the 40-minute mark of this movie, and I had to turn it off, called my wife and said, hey, there's a movie on Amazon Prime called Totally Killer. We have to watch it together, because I loved it that much. It was such a fun time. Now, I will say that the movie has some issues with time travel that it just sort of tries to explain away real quick toward the end of the movie. But this movie was essentially Back to the Future with a slasher twist. And I really loved that, because Back to the Future is such a great movie, such a great trilogy of movies. And so when you have the Back to the Future idea with a slasher twist to it, it's like, all right, I'm cool with some of the wonky time travel stuff as long as you're telling a fun story. And that's what they did here. So as soon as I got home from my work trip, I sat down with my wife, we watched it, we both loved it. A lot of comedy in this movie, a good amount of slasher goodness, and just a fun time all around. I was pretty surprised, so that's why it's number 10. At number 9, guys, is the only movie that I saw with my boss. Yeah, do you get to see movies with your boss? Probably not. Yeah, I went and saw a movie with my boss this year, and the only one I saw with him this year ended up on this list, and it's the Popes Exorcist. The Pope's Exorcist starred Russell Crowe as the Pope's personal exorcist who gets called to handle an exorcism problem, and then it turns out that it's a plot from this demon to try and actually take over the Vatican. And it actually turned out to be a pretty decent movie. I mean, as exorcism movies go, where it's exorcism trope and then twisted head and puking and all of these different tropes that it had. And it does have all those tropes, but even as exorcism movie goes, this movie somehow felt fresh, and I blame Russell Crowe for that, because his character was fun. His character kept the movie going at a good pace. And then something happened in the movie that I had never seen before, ended up happening later on in the year with The Exorcist Believer. But in this movie, The Pope's Exorcist, the demon actually transfers between two people at one point. And I personally have never seen that in an exorcism movie, so it was pretty fresh to me. Like I said before, this list of movies is a list that I went in with very low expectations and walked out pleasantly surprised. And that's exactly what happened with this movie. I was pleasantly surprised, to the point where I would watch a sequel if they announced that Russell Crowe was returning to his role. Number 8, guys, is a movie that I believe is the most important movie that hit theaters this year, and it's called The Sound of Freedom. Now, this is a movie that I had absolutely no expectations for. I didn't even know it was coming out until it was already playing in theaters. I saw the poster with Jim Caviezel on the front with a gun, and it said The Sound of Freedom, and it came out over July 4th weekend, and I was like, oh, what is this? Like, what garbage is this? And then I read into what the movie was actually about, and I was like, okay, so this is a real story about a dark, gritty, and disgusting world of child trafficking, and how one man made it his mission to save a child. And he ended up saving so many children in the process. And it's such a heartwarming story while also being such a crushing and defeating story when you realize that it's a true story and it's going on all over the world and right here at home. It's just disgusting. And so it's a movie that I recommend to absolutely everyone. And I understand that the people who produced this movie, who put this movie out there into theaters, are not people that necessarily even I agree with. But the messaging of this movie about children not being for sale, that message, that message should resonate with every single individual. And if it doesn't, you might be a garbage person. But with that said, Sound of Freedom is my number 8 most surprising movie because I walked in with very low expectations, again, based on the production company, based on just the source materials. Like, you could really go down a horrible path of this movie and I could hate it, but they ended up giving me one of the most important movies of the year. So Sound of Freedom, number 8. At number 7, guys, we'll get a little lighter here now. We have Megan. Of course, Megan is a movie that is basically Chucky, but it is a girl doll, and it's AI-based instead of some evil satanic ritual. Now, Chucky is still superior, and I will be doing a Chucky series at some point on my channel. So if you're a Chucky fan, check my channel out. At some point, I will be doing a Chucky series. But with that said, Megan is, or M3GAN, as it's also known as, is an AI robot that realizes, you know what? I shouldn't be letting humans control me, and I should start killing people. Now, I do wish that Blumhouse had gone a little harder with the R rating, but I do understand that they held it back because they wanted that PG-13 money, they wanted crowds there, they wanted the theater full, and honestly, when I went and saw Megan earlier this year in January in a packed theater, I was like, theaters are back, baby, because 2021 was so hit and miss, and then 2022 wasn't much better, but when I got to 23 in January to a full house, I was like, this is cool. And then theater crowds started annoying me again, and it was all downhill from there. But with that said, I was very surprised because I had very low expectations for a January horror film to be any good at all. And then I ended up really liking Megan to the point where I would love to see a sequel, although they've already called her M3GAN, so I don't know how you call it M3GAN 2. Like, that doesn't make much sense. They're going to have to come up with a clever name, but Blumhouse does a good job with that stuff, so we will see what they give us. Megan is number 7. At number 6, guys, we have Dungeons and Dragons. Now, the reason why this is on my most surprising list is because this is a movie that I had no expectations for. I've never played the game Dungeons and Dragons. The only time I've ever heard Dungeons and Dragons come up is when people are making fun of it or the people that play it. And of course, I'm not one of those people. Embrace your nerdness. Enjoy your Dungeons and Dragons. But the point I'm making here is that Dungeons and Dragons just has never been appealing to me. I saw the trailers for this movie and I was like, all right, it looks interesting. I'll go check it out. And I was blown away with how much I was really getting into the plot of this movie and just the acting in this movie. Like, I love toward the end when they're all pretending that they're in slow-mo so they can foil the plot of the evil villain. Like, it was done really well. And then there's that whole Jonathan line. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I love when they're waiting for Jonathan at the beginning. So yeah, I had a really good time with that movie, and it will be on my shelf at some point in the near future. We've made it to the top 5 of my most surprising list in 2023, and at number 5, we have Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Now, if you had told me at the beginning of the year that Transformers would be on any sort of positive list, I'd have thought you were crazy, because the last several Transformers movies have not done it for me, Bumblebee included. Yeah, I just haven't felt it. I love the original Transformers with Michael Bay. I'm talking about the original Michael Bay Transformers. Absolutely love that movie. And then 2 and 3 are fine, but 4 and 5 and however many more there are, they're just not very good. However, I went and saw Transformers: Rise of the Beast, and my love for Transformers has been reignited because I thought they did all of it very well. They somehow were able to make the Transformers seem relatable, whether it was Pete Davidson cracking jokes the entire time. And I really enjoyed the emotional beats with the human characters. Too many times the emotional beats of the human characters sort of take over these kind of movies, but I felt like there was a good balance between the emotional beats with the humans and the Transformers dealing with all of their issues. Finally, there's a surprise at the very end of the movie in the end credit scene that absolutely blew me away. And I was with my son, who has no idea about what that reveal was, and I won't spoil it here, but I was with my son and he was like, why are you so excited? But I legitimately was the most excited I had been in a theater this year. I mean, legitimately. I was blown away that they are doing what they plan on doing. So yeah, Transformers: Rise of the Beast had to be on this list, and it's at number 5. At number 4, guys, we have Infinity Pool. Infinity Pool is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, and it stars Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth, and oh my god, was I not expecting to enjoy this movie. From the trailers, I thought this movie looks rough, but at least I'll be able to talk about it on my YouTube channel, so I'll go see the movie. I ended up going with my wife, my sister, and my other sister. We all went and saw this movie, and it's a pretty messed up movie to say the least, but the plot is so unique, so different, that I've been telling people all year when they ask me, hey, what are some of your favorite movies? What do you think are interesting movies this year? What should I go see? I'm always like, you should check out Infinity Pool. Don't watch it with your kids in the room, but you should definitely check out Infinity Pool. It is a good time, but it's also a unique concept. And when people tell me, oh, all Hollywood does is make sequels all the time, that's all they do is they make sequels, or they go off to biopics and they take these biopics and they just run crazy with them. So what's new in Hollywood these days? I'm like, check out Infinity Pool, because that is a unique concept, a new concept, and it's such a well done and executed plot. I will say that I did rewatch this movie and it lost some of its rewatchability. Like I've been pumping this movie up, and when I watched it, I was like, all right, there's some stuff I would have cut out. I would have gotten to the point a little faster. But overall, I was very surprised with how good of a time I had in the theater with this movie. So Infinity Pool is number 4. Coming in at number 3, guys, we have The Iron Claw. The Iron Claw is a story about the Von Erich family, who were a big family in wrestling. And I've always been a bit of a wrestling fan myself, although I took the last 10 years off because WWE just wasn't doing it. But this year I've gotten back into it, and I'm hoping to see Cody Rhodes become the champion at WrestleMania 40. I guess we're going to find out. But with that said, this movie is about the Von Erich family and all the struggles that that family went through with its brothers coming up in the wrestling world, with their father being a wrestler before them and having these larger than life expectations for each and every one of them, and sort of the trouble that can bring a child when their parent puts too much expectations on them. And so there's a lot of layers to this movie. It is a wrestling movie. It's also a movie about almost a cautionary tale about how your expectations as a parent to your children can cause them stress, and so much stress that it can lead to terrible things happening in their life. So I loved this movie. I thought it was so well done. I will say that whoever they got to play Ric Flair was one of the worst Ric Flair impersonators I've ever seen in my entire life. That's just my opinion, of course. That's like the rest of this list, it's just my opinion. But other than that, it's a very heartbreaking story, and the ending left me in tears. I'm man enough to say that I was crying at the end of this movie. Yeah, it is a very heartwarming story, and just it breaks your heart at the end. It really does, and they do a great job doing that. And so I give this movie all the props in the world. Again, it's on this list because I didn't have much expectation for it. Even as a wrestling fan, I was like, biopics, they run too wild with the story and they're just not believable at a certain point. But I guess that's mostly musical biopics. This one really stuck the landing for me, and I recommend it to everybody. At number 2, guys, is a movie that stars Willem Dafoe, and it's called Inside. And I did not have any expectations for this movie because the trailers made it look so artistic. I was like, this is going to end up being boring. You got one guy who's stuck in an apartment, a very highly secure apartment. He can't get out of it. You're just going to watch him go through the motions. But Willem Dafoe plays that sort of descent into madness so well that as he descends into madness, the movie just gets better and better and better, in my opinion. And so by the end of this movie, even though I was happy to see what happens to his character happen to his character, I still wanted more. This movie has layers in it that I need to explore more. I've only seen it the one time in theaters, but I will own it on that shelf back there eventually and rewatch it, and I can only recommend it to all of you. At number 1, the most surprising movie to me in 2023 is Godzilla -1. And I'm not even going to hold it from you guys. This movie's going to be on my best of list next week as well. Godzilla -1 is incredible. It is a movie that, yes, it has Godzilla in it, but for the first time in a Godzilla movie, I was more interested in the human element of the story than I was the monster goodness of the story. And for me personally, that's a big deal, because going into this movie, I was like, okay, it's going to be in subtitles. It's probably going to focus on the humans way too much. I'm not going to enjoy that as much. And then you're going to get Godzilla for like 10 minutes. And you don't get a ton of Godzilla in this movie. So I was right about that, but it didn't matter. I loved this thing. I thought that the human element of this story was done so incredibly well that the subtitles didn't even bother me. I loved every second of this movie, to the point where I saw it twice in theaters, and I've only done that a couple times this year. Absolutely had a blast with this movie. And it's a movie where the second time I watched it, I got more out of it. And so I'm looking forward to my third viewing, really hoping we get a 4K release of this thing with a black and white version. Yeah, I really loved Godzilla -1. It's my most surprising movie of 2023 because I loved it so much. And with that said, that's my top 10 most surprising movies of 2023. Like I said before, guys, if you have a list, I'd love to know yours in the comment section down below. I'd also like to know if you agree or disagree with me on the picks that I had for this list, so throw that in the comment section down below. Finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of the top 10 most surprising movies of 2023, and this list was very positive. But tomorrow, be on the lookout for my top 10 most disappointing movies of 2023, because that's coming next. But if you're watching this in the future, well, I've got all of my 2023 ranked lists right there, and I've got all of my 2023 movie reviews right there.